Welcome into another Inside Carolina Inside the Lines. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Grace Nugent. We're sitting in Boschheimer Stadium. Carolina defeats Kansas State on a cold Tuesday night, 12-9. A little bit different ball game, Grace, than we were used to last weekend. Pitching got hit a little bit. The bats finally woke up for North Carolina. Your overall thoughts?
I thought that it was very different flavor of pitching. Last week, their ERA, I believe, was a combined 1.67, and tonight the pitching staff let up 9 runs, which is not very characteristic from what we saw earlier. I know head coach Scott Forbes is just trying some things out. New pitchers got in there. Folger Boaz made his first start back. But the highlight for me was the offense. I mean, up until the 6th inning, they only had 3 hits. That's not exactly great. Might need to change to score some in the middle innings going forward. But those final 3 innings, they really came alive. They were able to hit really well, precisely and in the gap. And we talked about it in the post-game press conference. I think that's going to be more of the mood of this team, the station to station, that really precise, kind of beautiful hitting, opposed to maybe the big, explosive, brute power of a home run.
Yeah, interesting considering who we sat with a lot of the game out in the stands. But, yeah, North Carolina scores 12 runs. You mentioned the timely hitting. Rom Kellis had a nice hit. Tyson Bass came through. Luke Stevenson had a nice hit. And then Gavin Gallaher breaks a 0-for-14 streak. Had a lot of folks worried. Of course, Scott Forbes is not worried, but Gavin finally gets it done.
Once he got on first base after dropping a ball in that right center gap, he looked so relieved. He finally did it. He's now 1 for 15. Proud of you, Gavin. Way to get on the board with a nice little piece of hitting there. But I think Rom Kellis might be one of my unspoken heroes thus far. He just manages to consistently hit some really good balls and place them really well. Alex Madera has also done that, and we talked to Alex after. He said that all of this team has power and they're ready to go. They really have bought into the fact that they're more of a scrappy style of offense. And he's also, I think, been the best infielder thus far. He made a few throws tonight from right on the dirt and grass line at short, and he just rocketed those balls into Hunter Stokely. And I think he's really grounding that infield. Jackson has been a little bit shaky, and Forbes told us in the preseason that it all happens up the middle, and I think that was really true tonight.
Yeah, you saw Vanderbrake had an error there late in the game, but Madera, I asked him in the postgame about the transition from short to second. He says it's basically the same, but the difference is, like you said, you're throwing from short, you're throwing 35, 40-yard passes on every play at first. Madera gets it done, got a great arm, he's got better range than you'd think given his size, but he still doesn't get to a few balls in the gap. But with Gallaher, Madera, Vanderbrake, and Hunter Stokely in the infield, you've got a solid infield. Kellis, Kepley, and Bass in the outfield. I think what it comes down to for this team, Grace, though, and what we're going to be talking about a lot, is the pitching. We saw Cam Seagraves come out over the weekend, have a great outing, and then he came and he got touched a little bit today. We also saw Folger Boaz have the bat in, and I think your questions in the postgame, both to Forbes and to Luke Stevenson, is these guys come in and they have rough first innings or first few at-bats. Mateus did the same thing, and then they were able to bounce back in their second inning or deeper in their outing and have some success. That's why they won today.
At least 3 of those pitchers definitely had that. Folger in particular, he came out, and it seemed like his command was a little bit off. Forbes said it was the off-speed pitches. He was kind of nibbling around the zone, which is not something you want your starter to do in the first inning. You really want him to go attack. And Kansas State scored 2 runs that inning, and then he came out in the second inning and put 3 guys away and really seemed a little bit like he had a refresh. He got his legs back under him. And then Cameron did the same thing. He let up a little bit. He got touched, but he had 2 really big strikeouts. One of them, I don't know if the bases were loaded or they had guys in scoring position, but it was 2 big strikeouts after he surrendered a run. And I think that showed a lot of poise and maturity from a really young pitcher in only his second outing. And then Maddie, I said on the message boards, this is going to be, the next few games are going to be really interesting to see how he does in that closer role. And for the first inning, he didn't look like he should be the closer. And then he came back in that third inning, in that second inning of work, and really hammered it in. They walk away with the win. And head coach Scott Forbes, he said that Matty he just couldn't put batters away. And so I think that'll be his goal going forward, especially since they're starting to at least figure out where guys are fitting and where, because the next opponent is East Carolina, and they might not be as good as they were last year, but those games are always a dogfight.
Yeah, Carolina goes to the Jungle on Friday, goes to DPAP in Durham at 12:30 on Saturday, and then back here in Boschheimer on Sunday for the series close there. I thought a funny / interesting moment was Tyson Bass getting thrown out at first, overrunning the bag, starting to go to second, not realizing that Boschheimer Stadium has some brick walls. And Scott Forbes laughed about that in the postgame a little bit, but definitely a learning moment, which you need in midweek games early in the season. Overall, this North Carolina team, I think, is a solid team. They can get better if they start hitting the ball. Watch out. Give me your Grace Gold medal today.
Grace Gold medal. I think it has to go to Luke. As much as I'd want to give it to Alex Madera, I think it needs to go to Luke. He had 3 RBIs. There was a few snafus with the pitchers at the plate. There was a little bit of, I think, tenseness with the umpire between everyone, and I think Luke handled that really well. He handled all of the pitchers that came in really well. He shows maturity, poise. He had some big hits, and he didn't exactly, I think, have the opening weekend he wanted. He played fine, but from Luke, we're expecting more than fine, and I think he's expecting the same. So I think this was a really good game for him. And then honorable mention would be to Gavin for getting his first hit.
There will be no 0 for 15 for Gallaher. He is now 1 for 15. With a couple of RBIs here tonight, Carolina wins 12-9 over Kansas State. Shout out to Kansas State for coming and showing up and playing well. They did not look good this weekend down in Myrtle Beach. At that tournament, and they lost to Coastal a couple times and also Washington. East Carolina in the Jungle Friday night, or Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon at East Carolina. If you're inclined to go, get there early. It'll be packed out for the Tar Heels and the Pirates.